Hey everyone, Chris here with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal in Southeast Florida, and about 6 months ago I built this wood trailer by myself with very little skill set, and I want to show you all the ways I fucked up. Now, I mentioned fucked up, but that's a little harsh. I actually think I did a relatively good job despite my lack of skill set, we should say. I'm used to taking apart furniture and building furniture from being a mover. I've built some little garden beds, some 3-tier garden beds, and a little garbage thing on the side where I keep all of my trash that my neighbors can't see because I'm in an HOA community, and I bring home trash and then throw it out here because it's free, why not? In addition to that, I've built some sides on my porch that's pretty well secured, I must say, and that's kind of where I got the idea to build this trailer. Now, if you've been following me for a while or you've seen some of my older videos, at some point you're going to notice a single axle, a little bit smaller trailer. It's a 6.5 by 12 with a very smooth wall around it with a nice clean wrap on it. That is an aluminum build that I had custom made by a fabrication shop that my brother is part owner of. Now, I didn't get any special discounts, but I did get a pretty quick turnaround with it. Now, the idea behind that was when I first got into junk removal, I started off with U-Hauls, the most unbranded thing possible that you could do for yourself. However, I was in the intention of doing it on a budget to get myself to where I could be, to then get a truck, which I'm currently sitting in. It's a Nissan Titan. And then I went ahead and got a trailer that I could afford at the time, which was just a typical utility trailer. Now, I had these ideas and I had talked it over with my brother of, hey, I want to do this, but I don't want it to be so heavy that it takes away from what I can pull otherwise with everybody's stuff in it. We came up with the aluminum. Is it the most durable compared to steel or metal? Absolutely not. But it is still pretty durable. It's weather resistant, it's rust resistant, and it's pretty lightweight. So I was able to still hold a pretty good amount of weight overall. Now, I did screw up by getting a single axle. I was very ignorant when it came to capacities that trailers hold and the axles. I just didn't know. Nobody asked me when I was buying the trailer what I planned on using it for. I didn't find out until about 3 weeks later, and by then we had already started the build process and there was no going back from there. So I had the aluminum build done, custom made to my liking, and then I got a wrap on it. And overall, I think it came out beautifully. I have still to this day have not seen another aluminum build from a utility trailer like mine in my county, in my state even. So overall, very happy with it. However, at the beginning of this year, I wanted to buy a slightly larger trailer, more importantly, a tandem axle, so that way I could handle more weight overall. And lo and behold, I got a 6.5 by 14 foot, same exact model as the other one, just double axle. However, at the time I was shooting more for budget and I wanted to challenge myself a little bit and see if I could do a wood build. I spent a lot of time looking at other YouTube channels, going on Reddit, going on Google, looking into the things to try to do and to prevent, and how you can best secure a wood build on a trailer. I didn't want it to look tacky, not that people's are tacky, but it wasn't what I was going for. I didn't want to do a simple plywood build with a couple of 2x4s. I wanted it to be secure. That is my main priority, is securement and safety. Now, because I'm not a builder at the end of the day, I have no background in building stuff other than the few things I listed off earlier, I really just kind of winged it. And I used 2x6s because I read that that's the most secure, all pressure treated, exterior ready to go, plus I painted it with an exterior paint. Those are on the sides and they're 5-foot sides. I then used 4x4 post in the front of it to help with the wind mitigation, because that's what we did in the other trailer. We have a steel corner bracing to help prevent wind damage. And then on the back, instead of putting a 4x4s on the back end, which will stick out quite a bit with the ramp, I just did a 2x4 to brace it in, and I basically did a 2x4 every 4 feet across the trailer for support beams. On the outside, it is just the boards, and I have a PVC 3x8 plastic sign that I got off of UZ Marketing. I think they're about 60 bucks a piece, and I bolted those in with a screw and a washer and then just painted over the washers, and I have that on both sides of the trailer. That is my branding. That is my version of the wrap with a significantly cheaper price tag. Now, there were a couple of things that I did screw up on, and there were a couple of things that I would have done slightly differently to save time and cost, realistically, at the end of the day. And I'm going to talk about some of those. However, not to be too harsh on myself, I will also talk about some of the things I felt like I did correctly to my situation, and I felt like overall was the right choice. Now, before anybody says anything, junk removal is very typical to have a dump trailer. I do plan on getting a dump trailer eventually, but at that given moment, a dump trailer was not for me. Would it come in handy in a few jobs? 100%. The debris job we did last week, that would have been a great job for a junk trailer. No doubt about it. However, for the things I use my trailer for and the accessibility I have to bring things on and take things off, I love that smooth, easy transition. If I had a dump trailer, it's not that smooth and easy. You can say what otherwise all you want. I've loaded a dump trailer before, and I remember having to lift a fucking fridge into it and push it in, get into it, stand it back up, shimmy it into place. I don't care if there's a fucking button to push and drop it all off. I would rather just wheel that crap on with a hand truck, drop it, and wheel it right back off the dump. It does not take that much time and energy. The only time I think a dump trailer would be beneficial is if you literally just have garbage. You literally just have bags and bags of trash. You have just piles of wood and debris and just crap. But for the most part, I don't get a lot of jobs like that. And when I do, it takes me no more than 15-20 minutes to offload the trailer at the dump by myself. I don't think the extra cost, the extra wear and tear on the vehicle, and the overall capacity of weight that is going to need a stronger truck to pull is quite worth it for me at this given moment. But I do plan on getting one soon. It'll be a 7x14 so I can match the sizes. So that way my volume isn't fluctuating so much when I do my pricing. And then I will sell my 12-foot trailer. However, that's in the future. This is now. We're going to talk a little bit about the costs, what I was kind of shooting for with this trailer, and then we'll talk about some of the things I would do a little differently if you are looking to do a similar build and you are just looking at other channels for research purposes. Let me at least give you my opinion on what I could have done otherwise. In the last 6 months I've been operating with it, I have noticed a few things that were kind of annoying, and I've noticed a few things that I'm like, whew, I'm glad I did that. Makes things so much easier. Before we get outside, because it is currently 101 degrees outside, and this is Florida and our humidity is like 75% on average. I just came from Vegas. It was 118 degrees. Don't get me wrong, that fucking sucked. But it was also dry out. I think their humidity was like 5%. So imagine if it was 118 plus 75%, I think we would all be dead. So we're gonna hang out in the AC just for a few minutes while we go over the pricing. Between all of the wood, the paint, the hardware, the aluminum flooring sheets that I got from my brother that I put on the bottom, we'll talk about why I did that. The aluminum sheet I put on the back of the ramp, we'll talk about that as well. The tarp system, which I got off of Amazon. The signs I got from USA Marketing. Everything that went into this trailer cost me $3,400. Now, we're gonna write that down because I just got off a job and I'm tired. $3,400. The trailer itself cost me $29.50. It was on sale. $29.50. Okay, let's do some quick math here. 0, 5, 1, 3, 5, 6. $63.50. Now, if I were to get a dump trailer at that time in my area, yes, I could travel. I could buy used, sure. If I were to buy one new in my area, they run about 11 to 13,000. I would want to get it wrapped white with my decals on it. That is my personal preference. So let's just call it an even 12,000 plus a $2,000 wrap, give or take. 14 out the door. That was not what I was looking for at the moment. So we went half the cost and got the trailer with the self build. It took me about 3 weeks to build, spending a couple of hours, a couple of times a week. I was not losing money by working in that trailer because I still had my 12-foot trailer in rotation. So I was just working on it when I could. I was stored it at my brother's house for free, where I was also working on it without having to have any limitations to time of day. So that was a pro. I don't factor in the cost of my labor as if I was out on a job. To me, this is my personal property. I was working on something, I was challenging it, it was fun, it was something new. It's gonna benefit me in the long run. I'm not worried about, oh, I spent 8 hours, I charged myself 50 bucks an hour, that's $400. I did that 4 times, that's $2,000 I lost. So technically my bill should have been $8,350. I don't look at it that way, all right? I don't charge myself when I go out and mow the lawn. It doesn't matter, it's my thing. So, cost, now you know. We're gonna talk a little bit about the inside. I do have a couple of things back there because we just did a quick little job, but I will work around it. All right, I got you on 0.5 zoom. So you will see there's some separation. My idea was to fill in all the cracks with a sealant like this one, because I didn't want things to seep out. I also wanted to try to make it as flush as possible so it would mimic my aluminum trailer. So it looked like just one solid build. Obviously, at some point that didn't work out because my measurements were slightly off. This is a metal plate for my SWA sticker at some point in time because I can't stick it on wood. Now, this was a challenging part for me, using the tarp system, because I had to bolt it into something, and I actually got metal done, but it would have been kind of tricky to have it line up enough to get it past the points of the wood without interfering. So we ended up just using a little 2x4 post. This was left over from one of the pieces, so it worked out pretty well. The majority of the trailer is held in with carriage bolts and screws. I should have used lug nuts on a few parts, but I didn't. That is one thing I would have done that probably would have been a little bit cheaper and much easier versus having to drill holes with a long extended drill bit, which I had to buy over and over and over again, and then fill in with the carriage bolt. But I did have my reasons. They may not be the right reasons, but my logic was at some point with pressure and wind and heat and rain, a lug bolt may start to strip. It's not like it's going into a TV stud in a living room that's always going to just have one temperature. So I thought over time it may strip and come loose, and at that point that hole is screwed. Whereas with the carriage bolt, if the washer starts to come loose, I just retighten the nut. If I need to swap them out, I can. So that's the main thing there, but of course it would have saved me a little bit of time. Now this is my sign I got off of UZ Marketing. It's a 3x8. They do have a 4x8, but I didn't think it would fit entirely well, considering that it starts here and ends up here. So 3x8 I think is the best bet. I basically just put on these 3-inch screws with the washer, painted over a little bit, so it kind of blends in, and I have one on each side. That's my alternative to my wrap. Now on the back, you'll notice you can't see through even though it's a utility ramp. The reason being is I had a aluminum sheet slightly thicker than the ones I have on my floor made, and I fastened it in with self-tapping screws. Now it may look really dirty, and that's because that is a non-slip paint for exterior use. If this was aluminum regularly, it would be very, very slippery when it got wet, and we work in the rain in Florida a lot. So as dirty as this may look, it's meant to be this way, and I plan on retouching it up every year or so. So far it's been holding up pretty well, and I can confirm in rain this works drastically well. So I basically just use self-tapping screws to mend it into the brace bars on the ramp. The reason I did this is on my 12-foot trailer, the grid on the bottom eventually would start to go like this, from either a really heavy item we were pushing up or bringing up those. I had filled a tile at one point. They literally sunk it from how heavy it was. It's happened numerous times, and now the back of my trailer, the gate is all screwed up throughout, and that affects the dolly in the future when you go up it. So I wanted to protect it from this. I also didn't want stuff falling out through the holes. I've had it happen with a small little metal rod before. That is of course a safety concern for people driving behind you. In addition to that, I also wanted this to be a little bit more concealed. I didn't like the fact that people could see inside because I do keep some of my equipment in it, and I didn't want that to be as easy for a thief to see. And I have had people snoop around in my trailer before, and I've walked out of the parking lot and they like walk away really fast like nobody saw it. So obviously we have a couple of things in here, but you'll notice I have these tall black E-tracks. I got these from Harbor Freight. They were about, I think, 10-15 bucks a piece. And I just fastened them in with 1.5-inch exterior screws, every few holes, trying to line it up with the boards. In addition to that, I have little D-rings that attach onto the E-track, just like so. On my 12-foot trailer, I have D-rings I attach to the top of the aluminum railing, and I use that to tie my tarp system to it. So of course I can hook it on at the very end, which is what I kind of came up with this. I actually got this off of a junk job. I hook the last part of the tarp into here, but sometimes things stand up and there's a bulge and there's tents, and I use bungees to tie off the tarp to these rings, so that way I can better secure stuff from wanting to fall out. Again, I care about safety. So having this vertical allows me to tie in any item either on the wall. Maybe it's a glass piece I don't want to fall over and break and clean it up. Maybe it's something I want to keep to resell, so I don't want it to get damaged. I can strap it to the wall. I can strap it long ways like we did down here, and I can do that at different level points. So that's the main securement, and that's actually one of the things I was most excited for when I did a wood build, because I'm able to better construct this in places I want to, versus an aluminum build. Once you drill a hole, you always have a hole. Now, you'll notice on the floor, there's the aluminum just like there is on the ramp. I have this throughout the whole thing. It's 3 total sheets of aluminum. They were cut to size for my flooring. And the purpose behind it is I wanted to help eliminate having anything seep through the floorboards. I've had it happen once before with paint. Luckily, it was on my driveway, and I noticed it just as I was going out. If that happens on the city street or in a parking lot or an apartment complex and you're just dragging paint through, that's an easy way to pick up a very nice fine, and I like to try to avoid that. So I did try to mimic a dump trailer in a sense where it is completely sealed. I sealed off the bottom gap all the way across on the whole trailer so nothing can go out that way, and there's no entryway for anything to escape the trailer on the floorboard. So when it rains, my trailer is always up on a slight incline, so water just goes out the opposite side, and we never have a problem. It also helps with not having screws escape and getting into the street. I don't want to cause a flat tire for anybody else, let alone myself, so that's another reason for it. Now, those are pretty much all the pros that I've talked about. Let's get into some of the cons. Like I mentioned before, I use carriage bolts for pretty much everything. So a lot of this stuff is just held in by screws, which is pretty typical. But on the very front side, I'll have to climb up and show you. So as I mentioned, these are carriage bolts. And they run through right here, going all the way down. And these worked out. However, I had to buy a special drill bit to get through 6 inches of wood, plus this guy. And that drill bit alone cost $27, and I only used it for this exact part. So if I could have done it differently, I would have just gotten like a 4 or 5 inch lag bolt and just drilled it into place. Obviously would have saved me the cost on a $24 drill. I also would have done a metal and brought this up a little bit farther and out a little, because like I said before, I wanted this to be as far forward as I could so I could bring my tarp out so it's never dragging on the 2x4. However, I didn't have any way of bringing a carriage bolt through this board, and then there's nothing to connect it on this side. That's where a lag bolt would have came in. So that would have been a simple fix that I just didn't think about until like a month later. On top of that, you can see I have these studs down here that I use for the pockets to kind of help brace and hold the piece to it. What I would have done a little differently, I had my brother custom make me this brace. So this is just going straight up solid steel, 1/4 inch thick, with a little bit of a flexion for better securement, and it's just welded onto the actual pipe itself of the trailer. What I would have rather have done, and I didn't think about it, was do one here and then do one in the front. And I could have just drilled my own hole through it to better secure it to this anyways. But that way it would have been able to have 4 strong points holding it back, so you don't have to worry about it caving in over time. And I probably could have saved on doing the 2x4 or excuse me, I could have saved on doing the 4x4, which obviously 2 of those adds a little bit extra weight. So I could have saved on that. Now, something else that I would have done a little differently, and this is going to be a completely different build idea, would have been to just have my brother make these posts like I did here. Done one here, one maybe halfway, one towards the front because there's a lot of pressure up here with the wind, and then one in the back kind of cupping the corner. And then I would have just built plywood off of that and double layered it, so it was still relatively thick, but it was a smooth surface on both sides, so I wouldn't have to worry about doing all the caulking. That was a lot of caulk that I had to use, and the paint was also a little tough too because I had to use wood bond to fill in all the knots so they didn't bleed through as easily. You can see some of them did, but I was trying to really smooth this out the best I could. So you can't even see all of it, but there's a lot of wood filler trying to cover up all these little holes to appear it to be a little bit more flush. So I could have gotten those braces done, which overall weren't super expensive to have done. Still would have been pretty secure, still would have helped prevent bowing like it did with my 12-foot trailer, and I would have been able to do a plywood as thick as I wanted to, and overall the weight still would have been lighter than what this is now, and it would have saved me all those extra steps. And then I still could have done this. Heck, I could have even just done a stencil at that point. But again, this is what I thought to be secure at the time. Didn't think about it until afterwards. Had already bought all the wood. But that's something I think would have been a heck of a lot easier. Would have saved me a ton of time. They made these holes in here. I didn't drill these myself. So I could just have them repeat that process all throughout. And then I just drill it in with either shorter carriage bolts or lag bolts, and I could have done that with the plywood. And if that plywood ever got damaged, it wouldn't be hard to just swap it out and put it in a new piece. So I think that would have probably saved me half of my time. It would have saved me a lot of money in wood, and it would have saved me a lot of time messing around with the sealant bond and the paint. So that would have been an entirely different build, but I think it would have made it look a little bit nicer. So that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like I said, I felt like I fucked up in more of a sense where I added a lot of weight where maybe I didn't need to, but it's where my skill set was at, and it's what I think was best at the time. So if you have any suggestions for the future in case I decide to build again, comment down below. If you have made a trailer yourself and you've done some errors that you found out otherwise, and maybe that wasn't the best, let me know what you screwed up on it, how you would have fixed it. And if you thought I did a decent job, let me know as well so I can build a little motivation back and build my integrity back up. But we're gonna go ahead and sort through the stuff we have here, bag up some of the stuff to donate. We're gonna post some of it out on the curbs for the neighbors to take. That's how I donate, because Goodwill sucks down here. And I think we're gonna be trying to sell the TV and the dresser. So everything else will be trash, which is probably just gonna be the love seat, honestly. Everything else in there is pretty good. So good, easy job, $375, took about an hour. Seen the lean facility I'm a vendor at, did it by myself, and that's it. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.